This is Evan over here.
Diana.
Jordan.
Jenna. So we're going to start by talking about temporary inequality and then two types of inequality. And then, so for temporary inequality, it talks about, as an example, relationship between parents, children, teachers, students, and the superior is like assumed to have more ability or something more valuable than the less.
Mm-hmm. But this like inequality or disparity is meant to be temporary and meant to in the long run like help the quote subordinate become kind of equal to the dominant person.
What I found interesting is that like it said like sometimes like that doesn't always end up, and I just thought of how like as adults, if you need to use like the restroom, you just use the restroom. Like at my work, I just go when I need to. But in like school, it's like you have a little hallway pass.
Yeah.
You have to ask.
You have to ask.
And sometimes they say no.
Yeah.
Which is weird.
They say, is it
You're
right?
only allowed to go like a certain amount of times.
Yeah.
And like all the funniest stories, but also like kind of sad if you think about it, is like when they say no, or if it's like they're just sick, like nauseous or something, and they end up throwing up, or they end up like going in their pants, and it's like because
It's like traumatizing experience.
Yeah. Especially for girls that are on their period, it's like no, I have to go.
So I just thought that was like interesting that like sometimes the people in charge forget that they're trying to elevate them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
It's not really like, I don't know, it kind of takes away autonomy of the person.
Yeah.
Because you're always going to have those kids that are going to go and then just probably mess around in the halls or whatever, but like kids are going to find a way to do that anyway, so I don't know, I don't think the school system can really benefit and produce the idea of bodily autonomy when they practice that kind of stuff.
So for the inferior person in different situations, the reading talks about historically what justification the inferior person has used to deem themselves as like greater than the subordinate or whatever. What do you guys think about how that's been used for like race and gender, and people capitalizing on those things to deem themselves as like more competent, or you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Can you repeat that?
Like people have said black people or women should be inferior, so they're basing it off of race or gender.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you think about that?
I think it comes down to like, well, for gender, obviously gender roles and like those assumptions of women, because women are defined as what they lack in relation to men, what they're deficient in, which aren't like the preferred or accepted dominant traits, like being emotional and sensitive and irrational and stuff like nurturing and stuff like that.
I mean, it sounds like it ties back into like this the construction of inequality or disability that we were talking about the other day. We were reading about how as soon like you could just label them disabled in some way, whether they truly are or not. In that sense, like that is like immediate qualifier to put them in this subordinate group, and it's not something they can ever apparently come back from. They can't just make them abled.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the chapter talks about how like these groups, they kind of take on those roles and those like assumptions, and they kind of it kind of puts them into a box, and it puts them in a state of almost complacency. Is that a word? Yeah. And so they don't really view them, if they've internalized it, they don't view themselves as being able to like do better or have more favorable traits. They're just like, okay, I'm a woman or I'm a black person, like this is how
So that
I'm
means
supposed
this.
to,
Yeah.
and it kind of just reproduces that, you know, inequality, and they're not trying to
Yeah.
go out of that box or, you know.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting how Miller said like that the superior degrade the lesser to stay superior.
Yeah.
And that's exactly like with like women, like men, or the men attacked like certain characteristics of the woman and degraded them to make them feel less and
Yeah.
to stay superior.
Yeah.
So like a personal question, like I guess I'd ask is like, as like women, what are ways you've internalized like some of these things that men have said about you guys as a whole, and like actual examples of people despairing you if you've stepped out of line, quote unquote.
Thank you for asking.
I was like, I've got some stuff to say.
Well, one of the things I highlighted in the reading is it says it follows from this that dominant groups generally do not like to be told about or even quietly reminded about the existence of inequality.
Mm-hmm.
I think you asking that points to like one of the biggest problems of like men not even willing to enter that conversation because they don't want to be told that things are unequal.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of like a reading, I think we read it in actually an article in Social Theory last year or last semester that talked about like the myth of the male decline, and it's like men capitalizing on certain statistics and taking them out of context and being like, look how equal it is now, but like when you go deeper into the statistics, it's like, oh, that's not true.
Yeah.
And like, should we just believe you because it's a headline and like because you're telling us these things? It's like, no, this stuff isn't true.
Mm-hmm.
So ask.
Yeah.
Or like ask how you've been personally
Exactly.
felt by
Yeah. It kind of like ties into the argument of like de facto and de jure.
Yeah.
Like, okay, yeah, women are in the workforce and stuff like they've got more economic opportunities, but it's like, okay, what's really happening in everyday interactions and at like the individual level, not just, oh, now women can vote, okay, now they're equal, or you know,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Totally.
I just think it's crazy because even though women are able to work now and everything, they're expected to work and still come back home and do all those things that women who stay at home do, while
And
men
emotional
aren't
labor.
expected to
Yes.
do that.
Uh-huh.
You know, so it's like having two jobs. Like you get out of work and you go back home and take care of the kids and cook and clean, and men are just expected to work.
Yeah. And emotional labor.
And it's not recognized as real labor because it doesn't have any monetary value.
Yeah.
So it's devalued.
Yeah.
But it's literally like it's the second shift. I forgot what feminist theorists coined that, but I think it was
Double consciousness?
double consciousness, yeah, and then like the second shift. It was some feminist theorist, but
Yeah. I love the whole question of like who said this was normal, like who deemed this was normal in the beginning, like who said it's normal for men to not be emoting like that in the workplace? Who said it's normal for men to not? You know what I mean?
So I was at the sexual health seminar last night, and
I wanted to go to that.
and like it's touching on a couple of things that I've like previously learned in other classes, but one of them was just that continued of like in the past, like if women like the expectations for like the subordinate group or women, like they wanted too much sex, they were kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But then time changed and it's like, okay, now they don't want enough sex, you know? And it's just like the people who do that, they're just like, well, we've changed our minds, and they just kind of willfully force whatever they want on everyone else,
Yeah.
almost at whenever they feel like it.
But
I
like
guess.
you can't win.
Yeah. Literally catch 22.
In my woman and what is the class called? Women in Christian Tradition.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're in that one too.
No, my roommate took it.
I took it
Oh,
last
okay.
semester.
Well, right now we read this article that talks about how like Christianity sometimes uses like what the Bible to form like gender roles, and it's like they just take certain parts of like verses to prove a point, but they don't take the whole like concept, you know.
Yeah.
And how the way like God created Adam first and then Eve, and how they say that's why men are superior to women, but in reality, like, Eve was created because Adam needed Eve. You know, like and they were created equally, not one inferior than the other.
Yeah, totally. So interesting. Not to go too rogue on the whole topic of scripture, but
goes rogue.
It's so interesting how how conservative Christian tradition looks at that as like, here what your general should be, but then historically and even like in recent history, the church uses texts in the Bible to justify separation of church and state, to not get involved in other political and social issues, because they're like, this isn't our place. And it's like, so we're gonna pick and choose what we're gonna get involved with, because it's like what history has done, or what they want the women to be in the church. So we're gonna keep using this part, but then ignore this part.
So I think going to that is that this other part is where like subordinate groups sometimes imitate the power dynamics.
Yeah.
So we saw that
That's so interesting.
like in women's marches, like TERFs and all those people.
Yeah.
But even in the church, to go at what you're saying, is like there's some like older women in the church are like, hey, here's what it means to be a woman: submissive to your husband.
Yeah.
Make sure he has like what he needs when he comes home. Like, be supportive, you know. And then the younger women are like, no. And then the older women are like, you're not real women. You're not real Christians. You're not. And then it's like they like kind of uphold that beliefs no matter, even though they've been suppressed their entire lives. Yeah. And they it's almost too late for them.
Do you feel like not submissive women are a threat to your manhood?
No, I don't. Wait, hold on. Say that again. I was making sure.
Do you think that women who aren't submissive, like not passive, do you think that like strong-headed women are a threat to your manhood?
I don't think so. I think they make me as a better person. They challenge me to be better.
So what would you say to a man that was like, I want a submissive woman, Christian woman? Like, how would you go about
That's a tricky question.
I think I would just, depending on the person and my relationship person, if it's a close friend, I'd say good luck finding that. I don't think you should be looking for that anyway. I'd be like, you want someone to like be on your level of like aspiration. You don't want someone like, just like stays home, lets you do all your thing. You want someone who matches your intensity of like, I want to do well, and then I'm going to encourage you to do well, and you're going to encourage me to do well. And our work ethic and our like love for each other will continue to grow and build each other up. And, like, I think that's the ultimate goal, especially
This wasn't
now.
a trick question. I was actually just curious.
Yeah, no, I mean, like that's if it's like some random dude that I just met, I don't know what I would say. Unless he asked me directly, I guess I would say, I guess I'd still say good luck with that. I might not go super in depth. But I was like, I don't know, like, or just say something like, then she's probably not worth having, you know, like.
Yeah. There's despite Christian teachings and practices, there's been a lot of, social science research that has shown that egalitarian marriages are more, like, people are more satisfied, and they, they're more productive and they work better, because there's no really power dynamic, if they're kind of on the same education level, and, they're both ambitious and kind of are sharing these roles of like, okay, we're both working, we're both sharing domestic roles. There's no like, oh, she's more submissive and he's more, he's the man of the house. Right. It kind of produces more happiness and more satisfaction and overall more productive, I would say.
I mean, the other thing is, I guess if you really wanted someone who's submissive, and there was like a girl who was like, I guess willing, like actually willing, not like internalized to, but like is like, I just kind of want to not do anything, then I guess that would work.
And you can't fault them for that, because that's a personal preference.
Yeah.
As long as they're not like, oh, you're a Christian man, you gotta find a submissive woman.
Yeah, I'd say that's the only way that would work, but I don't see most young women or just regular like aged women just like doing that.
It's
because-
interesting language because it's like, oh, I want to find a Christian man to like lead me and lead our house, and I'm like, that's interesting language that I grew up around. It's like,
Mhm.
I don't want you to lead, you can walk next to me.
Yeah.
You can hold hands and
Yeah.
walk together. Yeah, I don't know. That's a hard thing. Like when other people like your own like who are in your own situation kind of like, well, you can't actually do that. Like they hold you back down. Not only are you being
Yeah.
pushed down, your people around you are holding you down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the under the dominance on page 93 when they talked about internalization, in talking about how subordinates can't really find, or they find it difficult to believe in their own ability because of that level of internalization. I found interesting. You see that a lot with women, especially. I think that's like what we're talking about is